Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to Around the World Today, episode 19 of Series 3, and I'm Terry D. How are we? So on yesterday's episode, because we got a triple episode this week, we were talking about Brexit and Wales and the current goings on in the COVID-19 as well. So we're going to elaborate a little bit more today on the Welsh so-called lockdown, or as I've seen it be called, the Welsh hate the English lockdown, and we're being very racist by stopping the English come in. Okay, that's a bit of a statement, isn't it? That we're being racist and stopping the English coming in, but we're not, are we? Because all of the legislation that the First Minister has put through yesterday was supporting the English legislation that says that you cannot travel out of a hotspot in England to another place that isn't a hotspot within England. Now, it doesn't mention Wales in the legislation. Now, to do that, the UK government, or the English government, for this instance, couldn't legislate because it's a pandemic. And the pandemic is the responsibility of the Welsh government. So the Welsh government had to back up the English government in legislation. If you can't understand that, can I ask you, did you want these people to come to Wales? Did people really think that going from Manchester, Liverpool, Lancashire, that are in either going into the red tier or in tier 3, and then crossing the border into Wales, into an area that has hardly no cases and probably only has one hospital, did people think that it's okay to do this? At the end of the day, all the First Minister is doing, like I've just said, is backing up Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson just put in England. And you've probably got the same problem on the borders of Scotland and England, of people crossing over into Scotland. God knows why. But my problem with this is that this has just played into the Conservative Party's hands, haven't it, for anti-devolution. There has been a lot of hatred. There has been a lot whipped up. But to me, this hatred that is all being whipped up about anti-devolution, about the Welsh government, anti-Drakeford, for heaven's sake, but all of this just seems to have been whipped up, bashed up. I don't know. Is it because Boris Johnson wants to renege on devolution? I've got some news for Doris. Yeah, you can't. Because 20 years, well, actually, only 9 years since the last referendum on Welsh devolution, that we were asked, do we want more power? And this was a gauging question, because if Wales said no, the next referendum would have been, shall we abolish the Welsh Assembly? However, Wales said yes. So we were given more power and a parliament. Now, if you backtrack on this and you try and unlegislate for it without asking the people, the problem you've got is the 70s up until the early 2000s in Northern Ireland. The people didn't want to get rid of their parliament. But you chose to do it and to impose self-rule, or, UK rule. At the end of the day, that's not what we want. It is not for the English to tell us here in Wales how we should vote or how we should be. When you've got a United Kingdom that is government that was only elected by the majority of England, In Wales, we have 40 MP seats, as I talked about yesterday. Out of those seats, 22 of them are Labour, 12 of them are Conservative, 3 of them are Plaid Cymru, and 1 of them is a independent. And there are no Liberal Democrats. But, yeah. So how... Yeah. When in Scotland, again, you've got 59 MP seats. The vast majority of them are SNP, then the Conservative, then the Liberal Democrats, then Labour. And an independent. Everyone seems to have an independent. But what people seem to forget is the UK's 4 nations. So far, we've got 2 nations that didn't vote for the Conservative Party, didn't send a majority of MPs from there. I think the aggregate system that we are voting for a UK government is outdated. It has never been fair to Wales, Scotland, or even Northern Ireland. Now, as in Northern Ireland's case, they don't even send any representations to the UK government. So surely it is now time that here in the UK, we elect governments basically on. So if Wales send a majority of MPs from one party, that's who Wales want to be governed by. If Scotland do the same, that's who Scotland want to be governed by, and so do the Conservatives. How about we just send each of those MPs, they form a government, and the government or the Parliament then elect a leader to be the Prime Minister. There again, do we really need a Prime Minister when the country was working perfectly fine, when the current Prime Minister was fat on his back in hospital, and the first Secretary of State, who is first among equals, so not the boss and doesn't have a say, actually gets a say. I just find it quite funny that people are also calling the current travel restrictions in Wales a lockdown. This isn't a lockdown. I can still go to the pub if I want to. I can go to McDonald's. I can go to the bakers, who were all closed, mind. I even went to the bank today. And all of this was closed during the original lockdown. Does this sound like a lockdown? All it is travel restrictions. I can't go out of the city and county of Swansea area. But people seem to be, well, I've been in lockdown 6 weeks. No, you've been stuck in the house 6 weeks and that was your own choice. You can still go out and meet people outside. You can still go to the park. You can still go for a walk. You can still go shopping. It seems to be that people are confused about the messaging. Back to the anti-racism stuff. Welsh are being racist to the English. It's quite funny, isn't it, that the Welsh are now being singled out as being racist to the English. So, what we have here is hypocritical, to say the least. Sorry. What we have is the English saying that the Welsh are being racist, and it's quite hypocritical, isn't it, considering the English oppressed the Welsh for hundreds of years and even stopped us from speaking our own language. Children who went to school and spoke Welsh were caned for it. So if you want to talk about being racist, any English person out there, please, let's have this discussion, shall we? Because we'll have this discussion, and this discussion will come down on our side every time. These regulations are not, and I repeat, are not racist. They are protecting life. Yes, they're protecting Welsh life more than the English. Well, considering the Welsh government are the ones legislating for the Welsh people, you wouldn't expect the English government to legislate for the Welsh people now, would you? But people seem to forget this again. Isn't it funny? Sorry, I had to press the button then because I paused for a sec to do some reading when I was waiting. But isn't it funny? that English people see a border between Wales and England, or even Scotland and England, as being racist. They don't see it about protecting life. Now, like I mentioned to you, the legislation stated that only in England you couldn't travel out of a red tier area to like a yellow tier, or to even an orange tier. But in Wales, we needed to strengthen that law. So if someone was found here from a hotspot area, they could be fined or dealt with by the legal system, as they have broken the law. Is it fair that a Welsh person can't go out of their district if they're in a local lockdown? So take Swansea. If they're in a local lockdown, we can't leave our district. So we can't leave our city and county. But an English person from Liverpool in a hotspot area could cross over into Wrexham, then down into South Wales and come into Swansea, but wouldn't get fined. That isn't fair. Now, there are exemptions to the rule. If you work here in Wales but live in England, you can use it. If you work in England and you live in Wales, you can you're exempt. If you are picking up children and you are a parent sharing custody, you're exempt. There are exemptions to the rule. So many people are seeing it, they're trying to hinder my life. No, they're trying to protect your life. And as for the racism card, can we please stop trying to use it? This isn't racism. This is the Welsh government acting in the best interests of the Welsh people, just like the English government are acting in the best interests of the English people, and the Scottish government is acting in the best interests of the Scottish people, and the Northern Irish government are acting in the best interests of the Northern Irish people. Each area of the United Kingdom has a different geography, a different population density, so therefore the rules would be different, wouldn't they? The regulations would be different. It's also been proven by the World Health Organization that fight these on a local level is much better. So Welsh Parliament level, shall we say in this instance, Welsh Government as well, is much better than, centralised approach. A centralised approach does not help. Just look at America. He tried to centralise everything. His deaths are now in I've passed looking. I really am. I really am past looking at the deaths in America, because Donald Trump is a worry to us all. He really is. But I didn't really want to do this podcast, and I didn't want to be anti-Trump, and I really didn't want to be anti-Boris, but sometimes it's a little hard not to be in this world, because they are both clowns. They really are. I just don't get. So, did you know that yesterday pubs and bars closed and restaurants closed in Northern Ireland yesterday? Okay. Is that racist? Because, many English companies own restaurants and bars, so they've been forced to close in Northern Ireland. Now, where's the kick-off about there being racist to the English? They also closed their border between England and Northern Ireland. Where's the racism card being played? So, what I feel it's been, and we're going back now to the beginning of this podcast, aren't we? What I feel it is that it's more to do with the rhetoric to try and undo devolution, try and undo the devolution settlement, or even to try and make the Conservatives win so they can undo it. The problem that they've got with the Conservative Party winning Wales is, if you were tuned in yesterday, you would have heard a story about a place called Penelly Camp in a Conservative stronghold. Do you really think they're going to vote for you? Sorry, Botless, but they're not, are they? And the rest of Wales is seeing this. Do you really think, if they're going to vote for anyone besides Labour, it's going to be the Conservative Party? The Conservative Party have been in power in the United Kingdom for the last 10 years. The Conservative Party have underfunded social care. social care, if I remember correctly, is even worse now, 10 years on, than it was in 2010. Haven't we heard after every election since 2015, since 2010, we're putting more money into social care. We're going to separate social care and the NHS. Or then we're going to put it back together. Sorry, but they're distracting you, aren't they? You know, in England, they are really distracting you. We've got a government that's been in power for nearly 10 and a half years, over 10 and a half years now, who have presided over the worst cuts to British society ever. They've wrecked the economy, made us leave the European Union, and the best bit is, right, they call themselves Conservative and Unionist Party. But the biggest threat to the Union is their leader and his little bitch. Actually, no, because Boris Johnson is the bitch. But, I mean, his master. They had the audacity to sit there and lay into other politicians. Yeah, I have a problem with Keir Starmer's new stance. I have a problem with Mark Drakeford's handling some of it, of coronavirus. I have a big problem with Boris Johnson's, and I have a problem with Nicola Sturgeon and the Irish. Northern Irish. I really should start calling them Northern Irish. They don't like, I don't know. But at the end of the day, these people seem to forget that to be able to find someone or to stop someone coming from a hotspot in England, there did need to be legislation there to back it up. And that legislation had to come from the First Minister and the Welsh Parliament. It couldn't come from Westminster, and it surely couldn't have come from the English government. When Boris, during this pandemic, is acting, he's not acting as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. That's what we're calling him, but he isn't. He's acting as the First Minister of England. The problem we have, and we always have this problem, and we always go back to this where devolution is concerned, is that the United Kingdom, 3 of the members have left, have become devolved administrations, member states, have their own parliaments, have their own governments, where England voted not to have this. What England got in the end was little electable mayors. And then the government just rides roughshod over them because they can. Now, if they had a parliament of their own and their own governments, the government couldn't really roughshod over one elected person, could they? The problem you have also, if we had regional governments in the UK, is, like I said, the government couldn't undo some of the stuff. So if it was being brought into law for the northwest of England, well, you know, the UK government really couldn't undermine that, because all you have to do is look at America and the federal system, look at Australia and the federal system. There's only certain stuff that they would be able to undo. Now, I'm not for, yeah, I'd love to see Wales be an independent state. And myself and some of my friends have talked about this, and we'd love it. But we also know that Wales may not be able to cope. So what I propose, or what I think should happen, is a federal state. A federal United Kingdom, where we are all equal members and we all send and elect people to form a government of the United Kingdom in our name, in the name of the people and the Queen. And then above, we also have our local parliaments. We can just get rid of the House of Lords, and make that the United Kingdom debating chamber with responsibility for secondary legislation, so checking the legislation, with responsibility for defence, benefit areas that we share, NHS procurement, and all of this, the stuff that we share today, minus justice. However, of course, the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom would be still the Supreme Court of us, but we'll also need to separate the judiciary. Oh, yes, we do. Isn't it quite sad that Peter Merger and Edinburgh Woolen Mill had to cut 1,000 jobs? Isn't that really sad here? But back to the racism. Are we really being racist? So many people, I've seen so many different things. Now, so many Welsh people are like, thank God this is happening. I'm so glad that this is happening. Well, like I've said, all Drakeford is doing is reinforcing English legislation into Welsh legislation. So there are no loopholes. But the Conservative Party, once again, abolished the Welsh Assembly Party. And we're going to do a whole thing about them because they're quite funny, aren't they? They haven't really understood that the Welsh Assembly has been abolished in May. We'll be talking about them in about 10 minutes. I know it's going to be fun, innit? Hello and welcome back. Sorry, I needed to have a drink. So we have abolished the Assembly Party. It was launched in 2015. The only thing is, let me read you about Lee Canning, who is an Irish unionist and deputy chair of the Welsh Conservatives, who defected to the party in November 2009, claiming that his former party were not doing enough to maintain the unity of the United Kingdom. Canning aims to stand in key target seat in 2021 Senate election, and in May 2020, Powys councillor Karen Mills quit the Welsh Conservatives and joined the party for similar reasons, becoming the party's first elected representative in the Welsh government. In Welsh local government, even. Richard, became the new leader of the party in January 2020. The same month, Gareth Barnett, the former leader of UKIP in the Senate, and independent MS, joined the party, along with former Brexiteer candidates Cameron Edwards, Richard Tyler, AWAP grouping in the Welsh Parliament, increased to in October 20, when the Brexit Party member Mark Riegels joined AWAP. So they have 2 people out of 60 seats. Whoopie-doo. However, how can you want to abolish something that's already been abolished? Now, they're a party with the name Abolish the Welsh Assembly, right? So abolish the Welsh Assembly Party. The Welsh Assembly was abolished in May and was reconstituted as the Senedd. Now, as the Senedd, or Welsh Parliament, if you aren't Welsh and you don't speak a word of Welsh, it's a full Parliament of Wales now, so you want to undo the Welsh Parliament that came from the back on the people. Now, you did hear me say about the Brexit Party, right? Now, I'm purposely not mentioning this until the end, but we'll keep going, shall we? So, yeah. Now, it's astonishing that they shouldn't rename the party. You know, at least before the election. No one's going to understand it. Abolish the Welsh Assembly. Oh, wait there. But we're voting in the Senate elections. Could someone please tell me what the Welsh Assembly is? They just seem half-heartedly. And yes, half of the people who have joined this party or most of the people who follow this party voted for Brexit. The bit that they don't seem to understand, what they don't get in their little mashugana brains, is that Brexit, like devolution, came on the back of a referenda. So to change that outcome, you need a mandate. To get a mandate, you have to have a referendum. Now, we had a referendum 9 years ago in 2011 about increasing devolution and the power of the Welsh Parliament, and to actually rename the Welsh Parliament from the Assembly to the Parliament. And it was agreed by the Welsh people. Now, as for Brexit, and as for devolution, now, they're not going to get it past the Welsh people because independence is quite rife. Actually, if you try and do it now, what you'll probably find is that the Welsh people will put another thing on the box, transpose the thing and put independence. So, we could try and abolish the Welsh Assembly that way and make it a full two-chamber Parliament of Wales. Happily. Conveniently, we wouldn't have to pay for any upkeep or any new Parliament buildings because the current Welsh Assembly or I'm getting confused now, or the current Senate buildings or estate have 2 assembly chambers or debating chambers. So we'll already have one. We just need to put a nice throne there for Princey Charles and the Queen. So, we can already go independent that way, any politically. And we'll put 100 seats in, shall we, for senators. Now, actually, that's quite a good idea, isn't it? But my point is, right, people, stay with me here. I'm a bit all over the place. My point is, to undo a referendum without asking the people again, or to undermine a referendum, is just like what you've done with Brexit. So what's stopping the next person who's in charge of the Conservative Party, or even the next Prime Minister from a different party, going against the people of the United Kingdom once Boris has done it against devolution? There's nothing, because they'll get it through. So we could rejoin the EU without actually asking the people, do you want to join the EU? Because that's what the government do. You forget that in the United Kingdom, we actually don't have a constitution. We follow what predecessors have done before. So Boris Johnson seems to also forget, and his little master, Dominic Cummings, that the last time a United Kingdom government imposed rule on a member state of the United Kingdom, it led to a bloody conflict from the 70s until the 2000s. Now, in Wales, like I've said, the rise of independence is going up. We only have to go back 100 years to the war in Ireland in the Irish Free State to see if that's how you want to treat us here in Wales. You may lose. And you may lose the whole country. Now, other people have said this was Boris's plan all along. I actually do think it is. I think he's bumbling about and he doesn't actually know what he's doing. But that's not for us. That's not what we're talking about today, are we? We're talking about the Parliament. Now, the people have reinforced their choice to have a Welsh Parliament at every election since 1998. So these people who want to get rid of it are going to have a hard time, because I'm looking now, right, at this. They've never been elected. They stood in the last election and they got 44,000. They got 4.4% of the votes and they came 6th. Overall, no seats. And in the 2016 election, Conservatives lost 3 seats, Labour lost 1, Plaid Cymru went up 1, Brexit Party went down added 7 seats, and the Liberal Democrats lost 4. Now, this one's quite shocking, right? They're also hoping that they can get on... they will try and field candidates in every place. This is what the far right do. They'll try and find candidates and field them in constituency seats just so. And these candidates will probably never win, will never represent you. They're only a name. They're only a place setting. It's just so they get the votes, so they can get on the regional list. The more people who vote for a constituency MP gets you more votes on the regional list. It's not really fair again, is it? Now, in the Welsh election of 2016, 2016, I'm not just seeing how many people... Did you know that 45% of the country turned out to vote? Yeah, it's not much, but, 41%, 45.3% of the country turned out to vote who were eligible to vote, voted. In the last election before that, in 2011, quite funny, 42% turned up. The count was down, but it went up. In 27, we were at 43%. So it depends on when the election is. 38 in 2003. I was too young. 46. And we also must remember that in the next election, 16-year-olds to 18-year-olds are allowed to vote. And that younger people seem to be a lot smarter when it comes to elections these days. And not being distracted by shiny little words like, get Brexit done, oven ready. No deal is better than a bad deal. And, all of this kind of rhetoric and hatred towards anyone from a normal background. Because that's what Boris has, mind. He has so much disdain for people like myself and my dear listeners who are listening right now. The man has so much disdain for you that he didn't even understand the difference between microwavable meal and oven-ready meal. It had to be explained to him. He was talking about zapping a meal, but that's a microwave meal. That's a whole different meal than an oven-ready meal. An oven-ready meal could be, steak and chips that you put in the oven, where a microwave meal is something that you put in and you go boop, 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 duh, bing, and it's done. And you cook it. But, Boris wouldn't understand this with his Eton background. And as for Jacob Rees-Mogg, Lord knows what's going on there. And to me, it seems to be a Catholic conspiracy. But, hey, what can you do? It's just astonishing that these people would rather roll back on devolution than sort their own countries out. It's astonishing, to tell you the truth, that instead of trying to sort England out of the pandemic, someone in the Conservative Party has been pumping hatred and false narratives on Twitter about Wales are racist and that all Welsh people hate English people. Well, that's going to be a little hard for me, isn't it? Half of my family are English. I can trace half of my ancestors to England, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. So, I'm a true Brit. So when it comes to this, how in the hell are we being racist? Like many Welsh people, we can trace our ancestors all over the United Kingdom. Just because Wales may want independence and may become an independent state doesn't mean that we do not have anything in common with the English. It doesn't mean we dislike the English. We dislike the political situation where we are being treated unfair, where our language is being treated unfairly, where our laws are being treated unfairly. Our government are being treated unfairly. It comes apart, like, in any relationship. So if we were married, yeah, where we all kind of technically are, like the EU, it's coming to the bit where we should be going to see a marriage counsellor because the next step is divorce. In my opinion, divorce could be fun. However, I don't advocate divorce, and if you are going to have a divorce, I do suggest going to speak to a parish priest. Because divorce costs a lot of money. Also, I'd hide the assets too. In an offshore bank account in the name of Boris. That's Boris Alexander Johnson. Or Boris Alexander de Pfeffel. Or is it Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson? Even. Hide the money in a named account after him in the Grand Cayman. Now, sir, keep your money. Don't ever name it in your own name, or the wife or the husband will get half of it. But Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson will make a good thing. The funniest bit is, right, all of his supporters, and I really didn't get this till a few months ago, but all of his supporters say that he's a very British man, he's very upstanding, and he's British and honest and all of this. The man was born in New York City. Up until 2016, he was a citizen of the United States. He got a vote in the last presidential election. He could have stood to be president of the United States. But he didn't. And then there's the lies. And don't even get me started on test and trace and all of this. It's coming to the part that, you don't actually believe a word that's coming out of the government's mouth. A year ago, they were telling us about oven-ready deals. Yesterday, they announced that the oven-ready deal has been cremated. I wonder if they were allowed more than 10 people at their service, or their cremation service. That one would be quite interesting. Anyway, I just wanted another little rant, and I hope you're enjoying our new podcast, the way we're doing this. I hope you're having a lovely weekend, and I will see you on Wednesday for the next Around the World Today. And I hope you're having a good day, people. Happy Saturdays.
If you enjoyed today's show, please head over to iTunes, give us a rating, and leave a review.